were running out of cash and that it was only a matter of time until a default would be on the horizon for Greece. The borrowing getting higher for many people. They believe that that could force Greece to make the EU and IMF deliver on their promise of a bailout. But apparently the Germans want no part of that, at least at interest rates that would be low enough to handle. Let's bring in Adam Connors for an instant audit at CK Cooper and Yu-Dee Chang at Ace Investment. What do you think, Yu-Dee? Because it's interesting how this Greece situation has played out. Yesterday, the yields, as I said, soared. The spread between that and the German bunds, they were much higher, just wide. Looked like a lot of people saying, oh, default is next here. Look out, Greece. The credit default swaps were way up. Now today, calm down a little bit. What's happening?
Yeah, basically, it's like the ECB president said, default is not an issue. Well, then, if it's not an issue, then there's only two solutions. One is that European Central Bank has to step out and do the bailout, or Greece has to go to IMF. The problem is that the moment of truth is coming up. Greece has to refinance about $65 billion of debt by the end of the year, but $30 billion by the end of the May. And right now, like you were saying, because of a credit issue, their 10-year is paying about 7.5%, and their 2-year, they're paying about 7.7%. So sooner or later, ECB or IMF, one of them has to step out and bail them out. Otherwise, in about a month or so, they'll be in trouble. I think, again, another thing that we talked about is the uncertainties and the extended time period that is involved in this issue. It's just getting too long and not getting taken care of.
Yeah, I don't know if you're a gambler, Adam, or not, but if you had to put odds on a Greek default right now, what would they be?
Well, I don't know about a default. I would say they're low. I actually agree that they're not going to let Greece default. What I do think, though, is that from a gambling standpoint, that they are going to step in. I mean, I think the chances are relatively high. I mean, especially given the fact, Connell, is that they, they mentioned exactly that the cutbacks and the ways of getting their spending in line, though they did hit their marks. You know, how did they get into the union in the first place? They uncovered that they were actually not exactly presenting the right numbers in the forefront. So
it's like the banking story.
It's a precarious situation. Yeah, it's like a banking story. You're
right. Like the same story there that we had on the banks, not cooking the books necessarily, but at least making them look a little bit better than they might ordinarily be, or like we had with Repo 105 there over at Lehman Brothers. Yu-Dee Chang, well, I don't know what's next here for Greece, because the Germans are the sticklers. I know you guys are saying, oh, someone's going to come in and bail them out, but it doesn't seem like the Germans want to do it at an affordable interest rate, because they're afraid that they'll be stuck bailing Spain out and Portugal and whoever else.
Yeah, that's exactly where the problem is. The European countries, it's not that they're doing well at all. Like you were saying, Italy, Spain, even France, they're not doing that well. So they're saying, we don't want to get stuck with the bill. Why don't you go to IMF and maybe have them bail out? But that's the problem is. We talked about it in the last hour. Can you imagine if California runs in trouble and the United States saying that we don't want to bail out? Why don't you go to the World Bank to get bailed out? So that's where the problem is. I think eventually it's probably going to be a package mostly consists of bailing out by the so-called ECB and maybe a little bit more assistance from the IMF. That's really the right solution. Without that solution, European Union is going to lose all credibility. Are you really going to let one of your member country fail? That's absolutely ridiculous.
Well, you know, it might be, but the debate is still ongoing as to whether or not that might actually become a reality. Adam and Yu-Dee, thanks to both of you guys. We have a poll up on this topic now about whether Greece will eventually default, so you can weigh in on that and all the other poll questions of the day as we continue this morning. There's the poll question. Will Greece eventually default? Yes or no? All right, some other headlines. President Obama holding private talks with